Hey guys, welcome to Mrs. Meyer's Cooking Show. So today I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate Rice Krispie treats to you. The whole purpose of me doing this is because I want you guys to see the different safety techniques that we use in the kitchen. Obviously, the last 2 weeks we've gone through all the different safety techniques. So now I want to show you how to actually apply them in the kitchen. So a very easy recipe to do that with is Rice Krispie treats. When you do Rice Krispie treats, you have 3 ingredients, and that is it. You have marshmallows, butter, and Rice Krispie treat cereal. Now, depending on what kind of marshmallows you have, so I have these marshmallows, these are the mini ones. If you have the mini ones, you only need 4 cups of it. If you have the large marshmallows, you need a full bag of it. Butter, you need 3 tablespoons. And Rice Krispie treat cereal, you need 6 cups. Now, my store, when I went, they were completely out of Rice Krispie treat cereal, which is kind of crazy. So I had to get the off-brand. I'm sure it will taste just as fine, but you can definitely get the off-brand as well if you go ahead and make this at home. All right, so before we even get started, we are gonna do something called mise en place. And what that is actually measuring all the ingredients before you start cooking. You always wanna do this. So whether you are cooking at Tinley, at home, at a friend's house, wherever you are doing it, you always want to make sure you measure out your ingredients first. So again, it's called mise en place. The reason for it, you want to be more organized. So it helps with your organization and it makes sure that your recipe is correct. Let's say you're just reading a recipe and you don't realize while you're kind of in the mix of all of it and doing all of it, you're kind of rushing through things, you forget the garlic. Maybe your recipe won't turn out as good. But most likely, if you read all the ingredients and organized it beforehand, you wouldn't forget that garlic because it would already be sitting there. Also, we're gonna use garlic again as an example. I'm making chicken on the stove and my chicken's cooking, and I need to now measure out my garlic. Well, what if I start burning my chicken because I'm too busy getting my garlic measured? So that's why you just have everything organized, ready to go beforehand. So again, like I said, it's called mise en place. And that is when you go ahead and organize all your ingredients before. So on days that we have labs, you guys will do that as well. You will have all your ingredients out ready in different bowls or whatever it is that you need. And then you will start actually cooking. So that's what I'm gonna do for you first. I'm gonna go ahead, show you how to measure everything, and then we'll get into the actual cooking of the Rice Krispie treats. So, a couple things before we actually start measuring. I've done a couple safety techniques. I've pulled my hair back to make sure that it does not get in any food or it does not set on fire when I go to use the stove. And I've washed my hands. So I washed my hands for 20 seconds, made sure I scrubbed, got in my cuticles. So again, your cuticles are like where your nail bed is right here. You want to get into your cuticles and wash and obviously dry your hands. So I've already done those 2 things. So now I'm going to go ahead and measure. When you go to measure, you have to also think, where am I going to put the ingredients? So once I measure it, am I going to put it in a bowl? Am I going to put it on a plate? What do I have to do? So for our ingredients, I need 6 cups of Rice Krispie treats. So I'm going to go ahead, measure out my Rice Krispie treats. Because I need to put it in something, I got a mixing bowl as well, so I'll use that. And then my 1 cup dry measuring cup. You always use dry measuring cups for dry ingredients. So this isn't anything that's liquid, so you always use your dry measuring cup. So I think it's easier if I do this. I'm gonna go ahead and measure out 6 of these. Okay, so next I'm gonna measure my marshmallows. So I need 4 cups of the little marshmallows. So I already filled up 1. I'm gonna put it in my mixing bowl. Same thing, where am I gonna put it when it's done? You need to find something to put all the marshmallows in. So I grabbed another mixing bowl. So 1, And next, I need 3 tablespoons of butter. If you guys have never really looked at the butter, if you see right there, it has the different tablespoons. So all you need to do is cut it to 3 tablespoons. So I'm gonna get a knife and I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and just cut it at 3 tablespoons. Pretty easy. So with your mise en place, not only do you want to get out all the ingredients, you want to get out the kitchen equipment that you're going to need. So I will need Pam, which is cooking spray, not piece of kitchen equipment, but I will also need that. I will need a rubber scraper. I will need a pan to put them in after to cool. And I will need a sauce pot, which is this guy. So I will need a sauce pot in order to make my Rice Krispie treats. Okay, so I'm gonna actually start cooking. Now, because I was just touching everything else, I just measured the ingredients, I went ahead and I washed my hands again. You wanna wash your hands anytime you touch anything. So I washed my hands again for 20 seconds, and now I'm gonna start actually making the Rice Krispie treats. So what do I have to do? I have my sauce pot on my stove on my range right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I need to melt the butter. So safety wise, when I am melting the butter, I want to make sure that my pot handles are facing in. I never want my pot handles this way on the stove. You always want them facing in on the stove. You want to make sure that there's nothing else on top of it so that you don't end up setting a fire to anything. So I'm going to turn it on, and obviously everyone's stove's different. And I'm gonna go ahead and start melting the butter. While I'm doing that, I'm using my rubber scraper, and I'm gonna kind of mix it for it to melt. Okay, so it's asking me to melt my butter over low heat. Right now, I'm gonna put it kind of in the middle between medium and low. And I'm just gonna keep stirring it until it melts. Now, if you do not wanna do this on the stove, you can do it in the microwave to melt your butter. If you do that, you want to make sure that you put it in a microwave-safe bowl, so obviously it does not melt the bowl. And then from there, you want to also put a napkin or some sort of paper towel over it, because you don't want the butter to splash everywhere in your microwave. All right, so I'm melting the butter. If you have it on high, what can happen is actually the butter can end up burning. So you need to just take your time with it and keep it kind of on low medium, so you don't go ahead and burn the butter. That can happen. Okay, so as you see, my butter is pretty much all the way melted. Now I'm going to add my marshmallows. So I'm going to take my marshmallows, I'm going to add them into the mixture. I'm going to turn my heat down because I see that my butter is starting to bubble, and we don't want that. And I have to just stir until all of these marshmallows are nicely melted. Stirring. If you don't have a rubber scraper at home, so this is considered a rubber scraper, these are nice because everything kind of just falls off of it. You can use a wooden spoon. Don't use a whisk, because if you use a whisk, kind of everything just gets stuck inside of it. Okay, so it looks like my marshmallows are pretty much melted. What I need to do is I need to turn off the heat. So it says remove from heat. So not only am I going to turn it off, I'm actually going to move it to another burner, because this burner is still pretty hot. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to use pot holders to move it, because I don't want pot holders. I'm going to use this to move to another burner because it is still hot. I don't want to touch that because I could end up burning myself. So you always want to make sure you use pot holders whenever you're moving anything, touching anything that's been on the stove, because it's hot. Same thing, this burner, I can feel the heat coming off of it. Don't touch it because you might get a burn. If you do get a burn, you want to make sure you run your hand under cold water. Right, so I just moved it, and now I'm going to add my Rice Krispies to it. So it says pour that in. And you want to mix it up until it is all covered in marshmallow. Rice Krispies are all covered in, you see that? All covered in marshmallow. And the next thing I want to do is I want to put it in the pan. But before I do that, I would need to spray the pan with Pam, or cooking spray, whatever kind of cooking spray you have, to make sure, here it is, to make sure that it does not stick. So I don't want to do it over the stove because it could obviously burn. So what I'm going to do is, I already put the pan in the sink, and I'm going to spray it in the sink. If you spray it anywhere else on the stove, it could cause a grease fire. If you do it over your floor, somebody can slip and fall. So over the sink or the garbage can are the two best ways to spray any sort of cooking spray. Okay, so that is the finished product. So what I'm gonna do is put it in the refrigerator so it cools off and it hardens, and then I'll be able to eat it. Depending on what type of pan you use will depend on how thick they are. So this is kind of a smaller pan, so they're gonna be thicker. If you used a 9x13, which is the bigger kind of cake pan, then they'll be not as thick. So these are gonna be kind of smaller, but thicker. Okay. All right, and that is on making Rice Krispie treats. So you wanna make sure at the very end you clean everything up. Even though this isn't a super sharp knife, you wanna make sure, I use this to cut the butter, you wanna make sure that you are going ahead and washing it separately from your other utensils. How I'm holding it right now is not very safe either. You wanna make sure when you're walking with it. So if I'm walking in the sink, I'm gonna have it down at my side. And that's about it.